Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Adapting With. Today we're speaking with Amy Spears from Highmark Health. Amy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Amy Spears, and I'm a newbie to the Pittsburgh area and to this amazing community. I joined Highmark Health a year ago as the Vice President of Creative and Brand Design, which means I get the opportunity to lead a highly talented and devoted team that makes up our creative entity, or what we call our in-house creative agency at Highmark Health, known as Tonic. At Tonic, we're responsible for everything from creating, developing, producing, executing all of our marketing and advertising and communication efforts.
Wonderful. And what brought you to Pittsburgh, to Highmark? What was the deciding factor or the opportunity you saw that you're like, I think this is the move to make?
First of all, the vision of Highmark Health, the commitment to the community to really transform healthcare, and the vision ahead over the next several years really drew me here. I also have worked with one of our leaders, our current CMO at Highmark Health in my past, and she's one of the most phenomenal leaders I've ever had the opportunity to work with. So it was like a double awesome whammy to get to work with a company like Highmark Health and that vision and commitment, and also reunite with the leader that I've had the pleasure of working with before.
Wonderful. And what do obviously your responsibilities and what you're working on probably range, but if you had to kind of focus in on and explain to us what is your specific responsibilities or your vision that you're implementing on a daily basis for your team, like if you could just give us a short kind of walkthrough of that.
Sure. Our company made a commitment and the investment of really building out this internal creative entity, or this creative agency that really will help us be even more customer, patient, and brand centered than we've ever been in the past as a company. And so to do that, we've really invested in building out this incredibly talented and passionate team, really as a full service internal agency.
And I think what's interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you started December 2019. Was that the official start date? So that's interesting because obviously know a few months later was the pandemic. And then you moved in the middle of the pandemic here. So why don't, if you could share a little bit of insights to that, like what was it like to manage the team and get them prepared for obviously a very unexpected turn of events,
Sure.
Being new to the company and as well as moving you and your family here as well.
Right. So, well, there's a lot there that you just asked. So I guess to start with, I was super grateful looking back on the opportunity to at least have a few months of commuting back and forth. We were never going to move until after the school year. So I had between December and March to really move, to fly back and forth, get a chance to be with the team, with members of the company in person, and really get kind of that baseline. And then the family, I guess they always knew we were going to relocate in the summertime, but obviously moving in the pandemic was not necessarily in the plan. And so when we did move here this summer, we felt kind of like we were quietly sailing off into the sunset almost, because you didn't have like the opportunity that you'd normally have to have a send off with schools, teachers, coaches, teams, your friends, etc. So we just kind of quietly exited to Pittsburgh this summer. And then as far as your question about how kind of have adapted through that with the team, I was thinking about this the other day, actually, because as the close of 2020, we've had so much success with how we've worked together and communicated during this year, and really wanted to reflect on that to figure out how to carry some of those aspects moving forward and making sure that we do that still in 2021. And three things in particular kind of came top to mind. One was from day one, we communicated and operated as a team with just a huge amount of empathy. I always say we all have our own version of COVID crazy in our lives, because no two lives are the same, and therefore our realities are all different. So you really have to operate with a huge degree of understanding and listening and patience with everyone, including yourself. The second one that came to mind was this notion of intentionality, we operate with more intentionality than ever before, meaning there's no more run-ins anymore in the office. You don't see people in the bathrooms, the elevators, the cafeterias. So to really have ongoing communication, you've got to be more intentional about it and mindful. Because the one thing about Zoom, those nonverbal communication cues are front and center with our faces and our body language. And so you can't hide from that. So that intentionality, that mindfulness. And then the last thing was connectivity. That's something that we've done from day one. We knew that it was going to be really important to still have that sense of community and that connection, and people having a way to get to know each other continually. And we've come up with ways for the team to be able to share how they're feeling, and being okay to say that you're not okay and what you need, and having that ongoing communication. So really, all of that has really helped us get to where we are and be able to maintain that true team spirit throughout the pandemic.
Is there, to put intentionality, you spoke about that a little bit, into practice, is there some tips you'd have, or some things that you've done to kind of make sure you're being more intentional, that you're intentionally being intentional?
The meetings that we used to have going in, or how you used to communicate, you almost had to take a step back and almost do an inventory of it and figure out like what was going to work still as is, what needed to change. Maybe it was the frequency, maybe it was the type of meetings, maybe it was the agenda, being intentional with helping people be okay with stepping away. We all say to do that, but it's really hard to do it. I even find it hard. So I have a weekly team meeting with my direct team, and it's an hour. And so the other week I put purposely on the agenda, I said 30 minutes special project. And what it was when we got to that point on the agenda, I was like, we've got 30 minutes to step away. Don't do any work. It's actually an assignment, is to go to step away. Don't do anything work related. Do something that makes you feel good. And it was really well received. And I also needed it. And so we're going to do more of that moving forward. But again, that example just gives you, shows how that intentionality, that mindfulness, the empathy of what people are going through, you have to think through all of what you used to do and how to make it better in the new environment.
And you might not have as clear of an answer because you're still newer to Tonic, but what was the work from home policy before COVID?
Oh, sure. Well, I would say we were always comfortable when anyone felt that they'd be more effective in their job for that day or more efficient working from home. And our company, I also got to give props to Highmark Health, because our company is always about the idea of less stress means more life. And so to have a highly productive and highly successful, high-performing team, you've got to have the trust and support and empowerment for team members to feel. That's one of the key ingredients to getting that and to having that support. So obviously in marketing and then within Tonic, we found ways to really carry that through even before the pandemic.
Do you feel like there's still be even more flexibility now for work from home and kind of that type of balance? Do you think that's like opened up the doors even further?
Oh, sure. Like we've even, as of now, we're planning to start to be able to come back in the middle of the summer. And of course, that date will move around depending upon what's happening. But as we're preparing for that, the middle of the summer, we're really going to adopt more of this work from anywhere mentality. And again, it just gets back to the company's belief that trust and support and empowerment for each team member is really a key ingredient to the success of a high performing team. And so, and it's really how people are effective and how people are efficient isn't really defined by where they're working. And so people, everyone will be empowered to decide where best to work, where they're going to be most effective or most efficient for whatever task or project they're working on for that day.
What is, as an agency leader yourself, what is one key piece of advice you'd provide to other agency leaders out there in handling not just the time that we're living in and what we all went through, but the things that unforeseen that will eventually be in the future as well, that you've learned from this experience that you'd like to share?
Great question. I guess a few things. From as an agency leader, from just the actual work that we do, and that being front and center, the customer and our patient and our community has obviously always had to be front and center to everything that we do. What the pandemic has done, though, is like taken that dial and turned it all the way up and then some. I mean, amped it up beyond our wildest imagination, right? And so you have to find a way for your team to be able to work super effectively more than ever to anticipate all of those constant changing needs of your customers and your patients and your communities, and then work equally fast and quickly to be able to have the solutions or products or services that are needed for those. And so figuring out how to keep that inspiration alive, keep that passion alive so that you can keep on top of those customer and patient needs is number one from a success standpoint.
Well, and obviously what's unique about your internal agency is that your client is one of the most affected industries in this entire period. So how has working for Highmark and the brand age and brands pivoted because of COVID?
Yeah, so it was interesting joining a full health system company right at the pandemic. So, Highmark Health has always been, I know I've only been there a year, but I can feel it down to the roots, that it's always been about community, about patients, about customers. And, equally so, again, that amped up focus has happened. And so we've across the board just quickly had to work extra hard to anticipate all of the changing needs that were going to happen and then be able to be right there to meet them. So we've done that in so many ways since the beginning of the pandemic, whether it was initially quickly launching a multi-channel campaign to really help support the whole stay home need to really slow the curve. And then I think the other thing that I've got to mention is just the efforts that we launched to really, they were more good deeds of how to help our communities stay safe without any charge. And so what I mean by that is we, in the very early days, we knew that it was looking like the masks were going to evolve to be something that was required. And that was going to be a new way of life that probably was going to be hard to adopt. So early on, we partnered with a local fashion designer. Her name was Kia Tomlin, to really design these fashion masks so that if we're going to wear them, let's at least feel good wearing them and maybe have a way to enjoy wearing them. And so then we went beyond that, where when the restrictions eased up and employers were needing to find a way to have their team members or employees return to work, there was a lot of nervousness. People didn't know how to do it. Not everyone had the resources or the knowledge. And so we quickly, as a company, worked together to put together these back to work kits. And so in that was masks, it was information, resources, workplace signage. And then right on the heels of that, when schools were getting ready to come back in session for the new school year, we saw the same need there. I share all of those examples as just key ways that our company and our teams have really risen to the occasion with the pandemic. And it's really just ties back to the roots and the commitment of our communities and our customers and patients. And so much good has come out of the chaos that we've all been going through.
Where do you see the industry going the next year and even the next 5 years?
Wow. So as far as if you mean like our industry, meaning in health industry, I think one thing that the pandemic has done is really just sped up everyone's focus on digital solutions and technologies in the health arena. When you think about it, the last couple of years, that space was probably seen more as a novelty, and moving forward, it's more of a necessity. And so obviously you see that with the virtual health, virtual visit numbers skyrocketing across the board. So I think that's a space that will continue to transform as we've really moved out of that, any notion of that being a novelty and really being a necessity in all of our lives as we manage our health moving forward.
What about specifically just in the agency world and media?
In the agency world, I think continued flexibility of how we work and where we work. I think you'll see a big transformation of more diversity of the workplace, meaning that with being able to hire from all over the United States or elsewhere, and then being able to work from all over and adapt from that, you're just naturally going to have a very different, diverse workplace, which is super exciting because we all know that with more of a diverse workplace comes higher performing teams, more innovation, and more effectiveness for our customers.
I know you've already mentioned some of the positives, but the focus on the positives, what have been, and this can be personal positives or work positives, but what have been some of the positives stemming out of this experience that we've all had to go through over the last year and so?
I think one positive on a personal note is obviously just more time with the family. Took out a lot of the hustle and bustle, I call it, of just those morning routines, whether it's the commute time, all the after work or after school activities, not just during the week, but on the weekends. So it's really just helped center us just as a family and have more time, more meaningful time together, and just less of that hustle and bustle. And I think on the workplace, man, there's no believers anymore that don't think that we can figure anything out. I know we all say all the time that we humans are adaptable. We've said that forever. But man, wow, we are totally adaptable. And when we want to figure out something, we will.
Amy, thank you so much for your time and for the wonderful insights. For everyone at home, I hope you enjoyed watching. Please like and subscribe. We got another episode coming your way in about 2 weeks. Have a good one.